Over the weekend, while Hurricane Helene was wreaking havoc across the American South, Donald Trump had this to say about climate change.
I haven't heard, Mike, they don't even talk about the environment anymore. You know why? Mike is saying, don't talk about it now. No, it's one of the great scams of all time. You know why they don't talk about it? Because people aren't buying it anymore.
So what happens when you cross a climate change denier with an idiot with a lot of power, or an entire party full of idiots with a lot of power?
Amazingly, this is one of the biggest hurricanes anyone's ever seen. You know, it's late in the season, very unusual. I guess the water was 20 feet high, and nobody expects that. People go up to their house and they think they're safe on the second floor, and they weren't safe.
Well, increasingly, you get devastating Category 4 superstorms like Helene. But it sucks to let knowledge and facts get in the way of your preferred narrative. This, after all, is the guy who, while the World Trade Center was collapsing, bragged that he now would have the tallest building in Manhattan.
I believe I really am an environmentalist. I've gotten environmental awards. But I want clean, beautiful air and clean, beautiful water. That's all, crystal clean water.
It's hard to know what's more gobsmacking here, the total indifference to human suffering or the abject stupidity. That always seems to be the weird choice we have to make with Donald, after all, isn't it?
We have countries that have tremendous nuclear power. And when I hear these people talking about global warming, that's the global warming you have to worry about, not that the ocean's going to rise in 400 years an eighth of an inch and you'll have more seafront property, right, if that happens. I said, is that good or bad? I said, isn't that a good thing? If I have a little property on the ocean, I have a little bit more property. I have a little bit more ocean.
Rising sea levels won't create more beachfront property. What they'll do is they will put already existing beachfront property under massive amounts of water. But let's get back to Hurricane Helene and Georgia. Why was Donald down there at all? His appearance, which was really nothing more than a campaign event, diverted valuable resources from the storm victims who were desperate, who have been left without power and clean water, and from search and rescue operations, just so he could get a photo op. Dark Brandon had some thoughts on the matter.
We're not leaving until the job is done. I also want you to know, I'm committed to traveling to the impacted areas as soon as possible, but I've been told that it would be disruptive if I did it right now. We will not do that at the risk of diverting or delaying any of the response assets needed to deal with this crisis. My first responsibility is to get all the help needed to those impacted areas. Your nation has your back, and the Biden-Harris administration will be there until the job is done.
Donald also used his ill-advised trip to storm-ravaged Georgia as an opportunity to lie about the so-called failures of the Biden-Harris administration in providing adequate assistance to the states most directly affected by Hurricane Helene.
Donald Trump lied about the Republican governor of Georgia not being able to get help from President Biden after the hurricane passing through Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Virginia, and the Carolinas killed 132 people and spread severe property damage and flooding to 6 states.
We do need some help from the federal government. They have to get together, ideally with the governor. The governor needs to, he's been trying to get them, and I'm sure they're going to come through. But he's been calling the president, hasn't been able to get him. But they'll come through, I'm sure.
Now, usually, Donald Trump, when he's lying about the Republican governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, he is attacking Brian Kemp for not helping him overturn the presidential election in Georgia.
You know Hulk Hogan's place on the beach got hit pretty bad? Yesterday, but no, he hasn't. In the show. He hasn't?
Here's what Georgia's governor, Brian Kemp, said publicly to everyone, including Donald Trump's campaign staff. Everybody heard this before Donald Trump started lying about him today.
The president just called me yesterday afternoon. I missed him and called him right back. And he just said, hey, what do you need? And I told him, you know, we got what we need. We'll work through the federal process. He offered that if there's other things we need, just to call him directly, which I appreciate that.
I mean, every single governor has praised the Biden-Harris administration for, one, immediately declaring national states of emergency, two, making sure that FEMA was on the ground and the National Guard was giving them all the assistance they need, and of course, making sure they had the resources to provide the basic necessities for the people, many of whom have been left homeless. But let's remember, it was Donald during his administration who diverted over $115 million away from FEMA's disaster relief fund to ICE so they could build more migrant detention facilities. Luckily, President Biden was having none of it.
Mr. President and Governor Cooper, Donald Trump has accused both of you of ignoring the disaster.
He is lying. Let me get this straight. He's lying. And the governor told him he was lying. The governor told me he was lying. I've spoken to the governor, spent time with him, and he told me he's lying. I don't know why he does this. And the reason I get so angry about it, I don't care about what he says about me, but I care what he communicates to the people that are in need. He implies that we're not doing everything possible. We are. And you spoke to the governor. I assume you heard the Republican governor of Georgia talk about that he was on the phone with me more than once. So that's simply not true, and it's irresponsible.
Look, we know what's going to happen if Donald Trump gets back into office, because if he and the Republican Party get more power, they are going to follow their fascist playbook, Project 2025, which is a published document which everybody can read. Just please don't spend money on it. First of all, according to Project 2025, with Republicans in power, FEMA will be eliminated. The National Weather Service and NOAA, or the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Association, which tracks the kind of hurricane that just devastated the South, will be eliminated. Emergency disaster funding for state and local communities will be eliminated. And federal-backed flood insurance will be eliminated. So, good luck to you if you happen to live in a state with a Republican governor, if any of that happens. And you know what? That's not how any of this is supposed to work.